All right, greetings everyone. We are live again. Dynasty Mir, search for Huru. Thank you guys so much for joining again. Thank you so much for joining. Sorry about yesterday, you guys. Yesterday was Monday. I'm sorry. Was it Monday or Tuesday? One of the days. I think it was Monday. I'm sorry. It was Monday. I was not able to come on. I was busy handling real estate business and post licensing courses, and I had to get that done because I was just procrastinating too much. And once I get focused on something, I'm like, look, I got to knock it out, or it won't get done. So, I had to knock that out, and it got done. Everyone, so that is off my plate. That is off my plate. So, thank you, Queen Mother. Thank you. So, everyone, hit the like button. Please share. Please subscribe. Also, tour. We are still rolling to Sierra Leone next month. Sierra Leone, April 20th to the 30th. If you have DNA, your DNA certificate from African ancestry that links you back to Sierra Leone, you are eligible for citizenship. So hit me up for details. So we have another citizenship tour. So I'm taking some people have around two spots left, 2 to 3 spots left. So if you're interested in enrolling, or if you just want to have a good time, even if you're not eligible for citizenship, if you want to come and have an excellent time, you are more than welcome to join us in beautiful Sierra Leone. And we're rolling to Nigeria in August for the Oshun Festival. So if you're interested in rolling to Nigeria with us, hit me up. Go to the new site, Danfo, DANFO dot Africa. Again, Danfo dot Africa. We have a special guest on with us this afternoon. Our Queen Mother, like I said, our Queen Mother, Dowoti Desir, is on with us, and we're going to be discussing building that bridge between the diaspora and Africa. And Queen Mother is officially um, going to be, for Benin, going to be serving as, will it be a delegate ambassador to the diaspora? What will be the correct term?
I'm the Queen Mother of the Diaspora.
The Queen Mother of the diaspora.
Mother of the
There we go.
Diaspora.
The Queen Mother of the. There we go. Not ambassador, just the Queen Mother of the diaspora. So,
Yes.
um, she's going to be playing a very important role in building that bridge and building that gap um, between the diaspora and all of Africa. So, Queen Mother, could you please introduce yourself and we'll
Uh,
take it from there.
Certainly. First of all, I'm very happy to be here again with you. I mean, I haven't been on the show before, but you and I have a little bit of history, so it's great to be with you again, Dinest, and to be with your audience. So,
Mm-hmm.
hello, everyone. I am Her Royal Majesty Queen Mother Semivo, Dr. Dowoti Desir. I am the Queen Mother of the African Diaspora for the Republic of Benin. I'm a member of the Haut Conseil du Roi du Benin, which is the High Council of Kings of Benin. I am a human rights activist, a scholar, an expert on monuments and memorials of the Ma'afa, or uh, some of you may know as the transatlantic slave trade in captive Africans. I am a photographer and the patron of a number of projects that are intended to build a connection between the African continent and the diaspora, and more specifically, Benin and its diaspora. I wear a number of hats. I also
Mm-hmm.
happen to be a high priest of Haitian Voodoo, and a mother of a wonderful young man, Marcel Davis,
Mm-hmm.
who's a musician, author, uh, and an all around incredible creative person. So, thrilled to be here.
Absolutely, absolutely. Now, as far okay, so your title position, it's not a position title. What does that entail for people who don't know?
Well, you know, the real authorities of the continent.
Mm-hmm.
are the kings, the queen mothers. And let me clarify something. In the case of Benin, when we talk about a queen mother is the equivalent of an oba, is and alafin is a king.
Okay.
Uh, my title in Fong is in the Fongbe language is Po Jito, which means the mother of the leopard. Uh, in Benin, the queens are the wives of kings. I'm not the wife of anyone. And so I'm a sovereign entity. And the recognition of the diaspora, the recognition of my role, or the creation of my role as Queen Mother of the Diaspora, is an important signal. It tells the diaspora that our lineage, the possibilities for our lineage, have been reestablished, has been recognized in Benin Republic. Benin Republic is the only country on the African continent that has a Queen Mother to the diaspora. No one else has a post like that. Not even a king for the diaspora. Um, Ghana, on the other hand, has the first and the only ambassador to the African diaspora. So we can say, in many ways, the position that I now occupy, the position that, even though it's different, but in some ways it's the same, that Dorothy Bennett does, Ambassador Dorothy Bennett does of Ghana, is a kind of it's an opening, it's an overture that the continent has made to us, to recognize us, to enable this this movement that has been created called the droit de retour, or the right to return. We have a right to return to the African continent, to reclaim our roots, to the extent that many of us in the Western Hemisphere, in the Americas, the Caribbean, and including in Europe, who have been outside of the African continent, have held on to our identity as Africans, as Africans in the Americas. If we decide we want to go back home to our countries of origin, then we have a right to do that. But this requires a kind of mediation, if you will. Because let's not forget, we've been outside of the continent for at least 500 years. You can't just slip right back in and think everything's going to be okay. And as
Right.
much as our brothers and sisters, many of them welcome us, there's still this us versus them mentality, this gap that has to be closed. It has to be acknowledged, it has to be nurtured, and then it can close. And that is a process. And it's not
Yeah.
anyone who can do that.
Now I know you can't speak for other countries, but what's taking other African countries, I guess, so long to develop or create a role similar to yours and similar to the ambassador of Ghana to the diaspora?
Well, I think there are a number of things. Um, Part of it has to do with the fact that people need to recognize their own history. They have to know their own history. I remember just a, a decade ago, maybe 15 years ago, the most, Ghana was not ready to acknowledge its history in the transatlantic
Mhm.
slave trade. It wasn't ready to deal with the diaspora, with the history of the Ma'afa, and
Uh,
the role that their authorities, even if it was forcefully played, but
Played.
nonetheless played in this process, right? So that's a painful thing to be aware of, that somehow we were involved in the expulsion of our own people.
Mhm.
And while slavery um, has been around as long as there have been human beings, and it has been practiced in every culture, in every way, shape, and form, for as long as human beings have been around. The nature of chattel slavery, what we experienced on the African continent, when slavery became racialized, with white Europeans against black-skinned, richly melanated persons, and we were treated as chattel. We were treated as furniture, as cattle, and sent overseas, and our families broken apart. There is an ugliness to that process, a dehumanization to that process that nobody wants to acknowledge, but we do have to in order to move forward. So it takes a long time to know that. I mean, so think, for example, what do you know about your own history as an African descendant in the Americas? You went to school here. I was born in Haiti, but I went to school here too. What did we find? What, like a little paragraph, maybe, uh,
Right.
about Africa, or our presence in the Americas? And usually that was what? Oh, we were slaves. We weren't even enslaved. We were just slaves. Um, and that is that's a new process here. And we are supposedly the most advanced country in the world in terms of education and the dissemination and sharing of knowledge, right? Well, on the African continent, um, that process is a little bit slower, and so people do not have the benefit of seeing and understanding that particular aspect of history, of enslavement, of colonization, of what it did to us in the diaspora, and what it did to Africans on the continent. And so we're just getting around, to understanding who we are, what happened to us, and are trying to make peace with ourselves and each other. And one of the things I want to give credit to is the Durban Declaration and Program of Action Plan, the DDPA, which recognized racism, racial discrimination, and xenophobia. That big process that is now 20 years old established the International Decade for People of African Descent, 2015 to 2024. And now the African Union has a decade of return, which started in 2020 and lasts until 2030. So there's an energy afoot. It is slow, but it is happening little by little, to recognize our bigger history, understand what we can do to try to make things right. So with the ambassador in Ghana, but that was an initiative the diaspora pushed, right? And even my position as Queen Mother of the African diaspora, that is something I too and members of the diaspora had to push to have happen. Um, but Benin responded quickly, or more quickly than I think Ghana did. But then Ghana set the precedence, set the tone for things, and so um, I see this as a beginning, and there will be other ambassadors. There will be other monarchies that recognize the diaspora and create space for us as well.
So there are actually people in the chat room asking, inquiring in regards to the process of becoming Queen Mother of the Diaspora. And how was that process? You said, I guess you guys went to the government and pushed for it. How was that? And obviously, it was well received because you're in your role now. But if you
Right.
kind of go into detail.
Well, there's government and there's government, right? There's the secular government, civil society, the president, the National Assembly, those folks. That's one entity that governs many countries, in this case in Benin. Um, but as I mentioned earlier, historically, the true governors, the true authorities of the countries are the kings. So I was invited to speak to the kings, but I have to say it was a member of government who suggested that I go to the kings, to the royal courts, to speak to them, um, because in many ways it's sort of their permission that is required in order to uh, pursue such uh, um, such an idea. I'm grateful to say that the High Council of Kings of Benin has open-minded people who have traveled, people who understand what's going on in the world, who understand that we do in fact need the diaspora to assist with development efforts on the continent. Um, I often say to people, if we were forced to build the wealth of Europe, we as African descendants were forced to build the wealth of Europe and the Americas, Imagine what we can do voluntarily,
In
with love,
Africa.
with honor, with respect on the continent.
But if I can interject, it's just the issues, I would say the roadblocks I'm having is, we brag about building the pyramids in Egypt. We brag about building America, but when it comes to Africa, our people are just like, the Chinese are over there, this group's over there. I can't do it. So you said voluntarily, but I think like in America, if we want to get our people serious about it, we might have to do it by whip, Queen Mother. I'm sorry, I should have said that, but it's just it boggles me. Like we brag about building pyramids, we brag about building America, but when it comes to Africa, our people are just full of excuses. What are your because that's one of your mandates as far as encouraging development. Like
Right,
what are your thoughts on that? How can we really get our people fired up about Africa?
right. Well, one of the things that you said, you mentioned the Chinese. Let's not forget the Chinese. It's a government. They have a mission. They're out to do things to. It isn't just securing developing relationships with Africans just because we got some interesting Afro-Asiatic ties, but it's about our resources, things that they need, and so they're developing relationships with our countries. Um, you, we have to think of ourselves, as difficult as it sounds, in a way as being stateless entities. In a way, Black folks are like Palestinians in this country. We might be African Americans as well. We might be African Americans in Colombia, in Venezuela, but we don't have our own governments. And the places in which we do have our own governments outside of the African continent, like where I'm from, Haiti. Uh, 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 in other nation states, island states, we're small. We're small countries, and we have limited resources, and of course, oftentimes we have our own issues to tackle in these countries. Um, but there is this movement afoot where there are more and more and more people who are looking to leave the Caribbean and looking to leave the U.S. and establish your roots on the African continent. And I think what has to be done are the kinds of things that you do. You're organizing trips. You do wonderful shows that introduce people to the culture, to the various cultures of the African continent. And while I may be appearing on shows, I need to do the same kind of educational process, but work with, say, the diplomatic community here, the Beninois diplomatic community, to see what can we do together. What kind of support can they provide me so I can help them? There need to be instances where people from various African countries, and in this case in Benin, can interact with African Americans, with Afro-Caribbean people, with Afro-Latinos. That kind of interaction isn't happening. Whether it happens virtually, it happens in Clubhouse, it happens live. Those are the sort of things that need to take place. But also policies have to be put in place. I need to be able to go to folks and say, look, if you want to come to Benin, this is what we can do for you. We have an expedited plan for you to become a permanent resident or become a citizen. We
I was
have
going to leave that
opportunities
next.
for investments. Here's a portfolio. It's something as small as making, I don't know, $1,000 contribution or $500 contribution to a sewing school, to some multi-million-dollar project that involves one of my pet projects, solar energy. We need to be able to produce that kind of information to people and make them feel secure that your investment is in good hands. Somebody's not going to run off with it and declare themselves, prince of whatever, someplace else in some fictitious, some Wakanda. You know, we need to do that sort of thing, so that people feel safe and secure about making investments. But for me, I've gone to the government and said, like, why are we even paying for visas? Why are we paying for visas?
Queen Mother. So the first time, so in 2017, when I got my visa to go to Benin, and guys, hit the like button, and what we'll do in about 20 minutes, we'll open up the lines and take a couple calls. Um, I had to mail my passport to the embassy in DC. Not only that, I had to get a letter from my boss, basically like verifying my income. I had to show a banking statement. They had to send all that off to DC. Now you could do it online, but in 2017, like that's what I had to do in order to get a visa to come to Benin.
Right. Yeah. And if you're trying to repatriate, you've got to do all of that stuff. And you need to get a medical exam. And you need to show that you don't have a criminal record. And you need to show that you in fact have ties in Benin. And you're not going to become a ward of the state. Um, so these things have to be, everything has to be put out on the table and say these are what the issues are, and let's talk about this candidly, that this is not cool at the end of the day. I mean, if we want to get a little funky about things, it's like, how did we get out here? How did we end up in the diaspora? So why is it that when we want to come back, we've got to pay to get back? We already have to deal with the plane ticket. I understand maybe most governments can't handle that. But I think if they wanted to, because I'm just thinking about Israel and how Israel has set up programs that allow young people to fly to Israel free and to stay there. I wish somebody would do that for us on the continent. So it's bad enough there's that, but then the visa on top of it is an issue, and there's another thing that bothers me immensely, and that is being referred to as a yovo, or mzungu, uh, 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 as a foreigner, as a white person, effectively, and and being treated like a stranger in many ways. And how could we be strangers in our own home? Um, yes, our cultures are different. We might speak different languages, but we've held on to so many aspects of African culture. We've reconfigured things, maybe, but it's the same thing. And so our governments, our communities in the Americas, and the communities on the African continent, it's as if everybody has to be re-educated, retaught, and be able to do this and recognize uh, each other, and how really at the end of the day we're part of the same family.
And that was going to lead into my next question, but I think you covered it. Sister in the chat room, she brought up where was it? Where was it? Where was it? Just having established inroads. Here we go. How can African Americans help build Africa when we never was given a path? So,
What do you mean you were never given a path? A path to?
well, I guess I think here we go. A lot of Black Americans or Black people in the diaspora, they get upset, or they want Africa to give a formal invitation to come back and build. I think that's what she means. I hear a lot of that, like, well, they're not wanting us to come over there. So maybe that's what she means in regards to never giving a path. But what you just explained, kind of explain like a path that needs to be given.
Right. I mean, I hear you. I understand, and I have mixed feelings about that. Because on one hand, it's like you live in the same house as your parents. Your parents are having a party. Do you really need to ask their permission to be there? Let's
Right.
assume you're over 18 years old, right?
Right, I get it, but a lot of people over here, they literally want Africa to come and say, you know what, our daughters and sons of the diaspora and of the slave trade, we want you guys to come back. They want a formal invitation. And I told him, like, you don't need a formal invitation. Just go. You know,
Exactly.
I didn't get invited. I didn't get invited. I just showed up.
Yes, you don't need a formal invitation. You could go. But what I think the issue here is this matter of recognition. It's about recognition, and it's about justice. Recognition is like I said, it's like I see you, I recognize you, you're one of my own, and I want you back. And just the acknowledgement of that is a powerful thing. Um, because it makes it that much easier. My vulnerability is my threshold is lowered. I can feel like, okay, it's safe for me to go back. You know, when I spent a lot of time in Ouida, as you know, and in Ouida, one of the most important sites to visit in Benin in general is the door de no retour, the door of no return. But in fact, it's also a door of return, right? Because it's an open arch. There's no door that's physically closed or open. So it goes either way. And I can't tell you how many times I've been there and I see our people break down in tears. Um, and I myself, even before the door of no return was constructed in, I think it was 1994, I was at the site where the door was to be, and I thought back as a voodoo priest of the prayers that we had, the prayers that called on these spaces, the prayers that um, were intended to sing us back into the African continent. You know. That I was lucky enough to be sung back into that space. That I heard that song. That song never left me. And so if you feel the need, yeah, there's some sacrifices that may have to be made, but heed, follow it, listen to it, go, come. There are enough of us. There are enough of us. And by us, I mean other people from the diaspora in each country. We may not be a large community, but I spoke recently to a sister in Tanzania, and we realized there's about 100 African descendants, whether from the Caribbean, North America, wherever, in almost every African country. And so there'll always be somebody there. Um, but in the case of Benin, you have me. Um, if you want me to write a formal letter of invitation, make that my charge. Tell me, Queen Mother, I need a letter of invitation. I need to know that I'm welcomed here. I will do that for you, and I will make it clear to members of government that this is something that the diaspora has requested. I will make it clear to the Council of Kings. This is something our brothers and sisters have requested, and so I'm going to do it. Um, and if that's a way of sort of breaking this, it's a psychological, it's a spiritual, it's a moral impasse. Then let's do that so we can get on with the business of living our lives, and making ourselves uh, the most beautiful human beings that we can be, and realizing the vision of our ancestors.
So one of them, I'm reading the mandates here. Here we go. Foster understanding of traditional customs and how they apply to contemporary society. I think that's very important because a lot of people don't understand how our traditional customs, how they could be incorporated into 2022. How would you go about doing that?
I'm still going about doing that. Um, I'll give you an example. Uh, one of the things that I think women in particular, this is Women's History Month, we're going to find confronting patriarchy on the continent, but we'll stay focused on Benin, um, as a bit of a shock. Because it doesn't matter how well educated you are, what kind of professional experience you have, where you've been in the world, what you know. Um, a lot of men will think that they are your superior. And to deal with that, the ferocity of patriarchy is like, what? It is a shocking thing. It makes me want to pick up my wakad, my symbol of authority, and whack somebody on the head with it. But of course, we can't do that. And so, what I do is to remind people of Aida Wido and Dambala Wido, the two royal serpents found in Haitian voodoo in voodoo in general. But they are the serpents. They're like the yin and the yang of the African cosmos. They are the male and the female energies that come together to balance out the universe, that come together in love, that come together for existence, to come into play, to come into being. And so again, just educating people, reminding people there is a precedence for for equality. There is a precedence for male and female energy, the divine feminine, the divine masculine, to interact, to play themselves out, to help build societies. And these ideas, have to be reinforced. Sometimes the idea of tradition is going to come from us in the diaspora, so that it is reinforced on the continent. So that's just one example. But another example that may hit close to home has to do with how you recognize, because you are a prince yourself, Amia. And so the whole business of protocol, how do you recognize someone? How do you greet them? It's not yo, bro. It's not hey, queen. No. There's a protocol. There's a way of doing that. It requires discipline. It requires knowledge. It requires that you show respect. And so many times, we come from in some ways a less formal society, right? We're a little bit more open. Call people by their first names a lot of times instead of, Madam or Miss, let alone Her Majesty or Your Highness. We need to learn these things because it speaks to how the nature of peer relationships that we have. It establishes clear boundaries, and boundaries that you're going to need to know, not only to respect others who are in a different social position than you, but to make sure the position that you occupy is also protected. That nobody diss you, that nobody gets out of line with you as well. So these are just examples in the spiritual realm and in social interaction that that need to be known, unpacked, unfolded, and discussed.
Another one is creating, I guess, organizing safe spaces between the diaspora and continentals to have, and Benin nationals, but that kind of could also extend to the just African nationals or people, the diaspora and people on the continent, Africans on the continent. Safe spaces for us to kind of to discuss our differences.
Yeah.
Um,
And are
how should
similar.
we how should we properly go about that? But I mean, we could discuss our differences, but sometimes it can kind of get heated and disrespectful. How do we balance that?
Uh, in some ways, it's not much different from the kind of cultural sensitivity, diversity sensitivity sessions that take place in this country, where you have corporations that have excluded women, that have excluded people of African descent, that have excluded people of color, and all of a sudden, we're coming into these spaces, and the folks who have always excluded us don't know quite how to deal with us, and we don't necessarily know how to deal with them, and so. There are people who are trained to create this kind of dialogue and exchange. that allows people to say some of the stupid things that you really shouldn't be saying, but you don't know better, and so you have the opportunity to be yourself, and then you have an opportunity to be corrected without being defensive. And so whether it happens online, or it happens one of the things I have to do in the next couple of years is to build a palace for the diaspora. In the palace, there will be a space where, again, we can come together, whether they're specifically organized events, that whether it's myself or somebody on my staff, my cabinet will establish, or you come to me and say, hey, Queen Mother, I have this idea. X, Y, and Z happened in Nigeria, and it worked very well there. Do you think we can do something like this here in Benin? And so we'll do that. And it could be anything: storytelling, learning how to jump double dutch. I won't be in that one, but you know what I mean.
Have a caller. Can we take a caller?
Certainly.
Okay. Brandon, I'm yourself. Brandon.
Hey, can you hear me?
Yeah, we hear you now.
Okay. Yeah, this is excellent. I love all these ideas. I think the beautiful lady is very motivating.
Brandon, the Queen Mother.
Queen Mother. The Queen Mother of all that we hold dear. I just was listening in. Sounds good to me. The palace is a great idea. Ain't nothing wrong. You can never go wrong with the palace. But yeah, the show was very enlightening. So where do you I didn't catch where she lives on the continent or no or what?
So go ahead, Queen Mother. I'm sorry.
That's okay. And speaking of protocol, Paul, technically, people don't speak directly to me.
Okay.
They would speak to you or somebody else, and then to me. But,
okay. So okay, no problem. Queen Mother. So Queen Mother is in New York, in between New York and Benin Republic.
Oh, that's deep, man. My mom's roots go back to Benin.
Okay.
They took a lot of slaves out.
Your mom should come visit.
If I could get her off of that reservation, she likes Indian reservations. But I'll see what I can do. I'll see what I can do. You don't hear about a lot of people going to Benin. Well, I don't, at least. You just hear about the places that people kind of romanticize, Ghana, Sierra Leone, Dinah's favorite place. But Benin is cool. I'm gonna have to slide through and check everything out, especially if you build a palace. I'm gonna be in that thing. But I just came on because I was gonna leave Dinah's a message in the back, but he put me in the show before I got to type the message. But thank you guys for having me. I appreciate being here.
All right, Brandon. Thank you, Brandon, for joining us. Thank you.
You're welcome. And our brother is correct in terms of we don't hear a lot about people going to Benin Republic. And I wanted to make a distinction between Benin Republic, which is the former kingdom of Dahomey, and the kingdom of Benin, that was part of Nigeria. Part of the reason for that is it is a small country, and there hasn't been a great deal of effort made to promote the country, and that's one of the things that I've spoken to the U.S. ambassador to the Benin ambassador to the U.S. about, and to the Minister of Culture and Tourism, Minister of Foreign Affairs. How can we change that? It almost seems those who need to know about Benin know. And why do so many people know, or these particular people know? It's because, in effect, Benin is a place of pilgrimage like not officially known as Mecca or Jerusalem, or is it the Gandhi River in India, but it is a place of pilgrimage, and those of us who practice indigenous African-based traditions and that of Voodoo all know to go to Benin to be back in touch with the source of things. It's almost how the Oshun State, right, has that incredible festival. Yeah, no Oshobo, the Oshun River. There are, I feel like I can say millions. If not, there are hundreds of thousands of people going there every year to pay homage to this Orisha, Oshun. And so it is not so many numbers, but there are people who are the adepts of Voodoo, and Voodoo is it's a spiritual tradition and an indigenous African tradition that helps us stay in balance with nature, that encourages to honor the earth, the air, the fire, the water, the light, the minerals, the air that we breathe, and to keep ourselves in check and learn how to live in a community in a state of balance. But there's so much to see there, and so much of our history is there as well. The history of kings and queens. You know, you go to the palaces of Alada, Porto Novo, Abomey, for example, as well as this particularly tragic aspect of our history in terms of enslavement, the root of captives, or the slave routes in Ouida. The holding cells that we find there, the mass graves, the door of no return, just as an example. There are other things to see. There's an incredible national park in the northern part of the country, where there, I want to say lions and tigers and bears, but lions, baboons, other wildlife is there. It's a place to visit. In the Kingdom of Niki, in October, there's this incredible festival that takes place where all the kings come out, all the nobility come out with their horses, and they're parading, and they have their color guards, and just presenting royalty the same way that we see at the Dubars in Ghana. These are things that are not talked about, that certainly it is my intention, is my vision to make these places better known.
Now we have another caller. So Will, go ahead and unmute yourself.
Hey, Queen, how are you?
He's Queen. It's Queen Mother.
Queen Mother. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. How are you? I have a big question, and I've been trying to meet. So you were a voodoo priestess, right?
Among other things, yes.
Okay. So, what are you guys doing in order to make voodoo a mainstream religion, or are you guys don't intend to make it mainstream religion?
First, I'm not sure what you mean by you guys.
I'm sorry. Like adept of voodoo. That's what I mean.
But
I have some friends who are adepts, so I'm just.
Yes, I understand. This has nothing to do. My position has nothing to do with being a voodooisant, because I've been doing that work independently for as long as I've been a priest, which is almost 25 years, a high priest.
Okay.
And so that for myself, whether I've been writing about voodoo from the point of view of a practitioner, I happen to be a scholar, but I look at things from the perspective of a practitioner first and foremost. Whether I'm doing that, whether I'm engaged in my scholarship, and I'm looking at a work of art, for example, and I bring in the analytical skills, of voodoo into the critical writing process, to organizing a voodoo festival, to appearing in any number of documentaries, so that people have a better understanding of what voodoo is. I am the first graduate of a number of interfaith programs, including the new seminary. My doctorate is in interfaith studies, and so the work that I do in the arena of interfaith interaction is about mainstreaming voodoo, is about normalizing things, is about making sure that these ridiculous ideas that we carry in our heads about zombies being everywhere, that this is not who we are. This is more about who you are, and I don't mean you, Sir Will, but I'm talking about the societies that we live in. Those are more their hangups. It's not about us. And so, whether I'm here, I'm in IET, I'm in WIDA, I make sure that people have access to me. They have access to the other priests that I work with. When I was at the palace in Ouida, Dada Dagbo Huna II, who is the supreme chief of Voodoo, we made a point of welcoming everybody and anyone who wanted to be at the palace and to learn about Voodoo, to participate in ceremonies, that they were able to do so. So those are some of the things.
So, like, how long does it take for somebody to? I'm sorry if some of my questions are dumb. It's just like how long does it take for somebody to be a priest? Let's say.
Well, the systems in Benin and in Haiti are a little bit different, but nonetheless, it takes years. And let me say, it isn't everybody, and nor should it be anybody who can become a priest. It requires a tremendous amount of discipline, and an ability and willingness to make sacrifices, to really think about the needs of other people, think about the needs of community before one's self. You have to be a healer, both in the certain sense of knowing medicinal herbs, but also dealing with social ruptures. How do you get people who are not talking to each other to come together and speak with one another and work together to keep social cohesion in place? And it's not a skill that everyone has, nor should it be charged for just anyone to have, because there's also a tremendous amount of power that we learn to call upon, that we learn to use as priests. And you need to be a person who's morally focused, who is centered. Your moral compass is where it should be, and you're not going to be taking advantage of the vulnerabilities of people in your community. So that is also one of the reasons why it takes years, because we have to see who you really are. And it's only time that shows that.
So, okay, that's my last question. I'm not going to. And like I said, those might be dumb questions, and I really don't want to offend you in some of my questions. So, don't take it the wrong way. So is it true that?
Will, Sir Will, you went out. We can't hear you. We can't hear you, Sir Will.
Oh, can you hear me now?
We'll hear you now. Go ahead.
Okay. Is it true that one can cast a spell on, like a love spell and things like that?
You're looking to cast something, Will?
We never know.
Watch out. Well, words are a powerful thing. If you're a Christian, you open up the Bible. What is there? Everything starts with the word, right? Everything starts with the word. And so Christianity, which is younger tradition than Voodoo, than Ifa, than all of the African-based religions that are earthbound. The vibration in the cosmos, the word, is a critical thing. And so when you structure a sentence or you can cast a spell, anybody with good intentions and with the right energy and the right training can in fact do that. But I always feel like if you try to cast a spell, especially in the case of love, why are you doing that? Why don't you just let the thing happen organically? Because love is the only thing that we as human beings can actually generate that is a force in and of itself. We can't produce air. We can't produce fire. We don't know how to make the earth. And we sure don't know how to create water out of nothing. All we know how to do is create love, to share it, to make it, to have its presence known. And that's something that, in the same way that we breathe naturally, love should just happen naturally. I don't encourage anyone to go out and start putting together ingredients and casting spells, to make someone come to you. That is just something that has to happen on its own, because part of what you will also learn is when we force something into being, it doesn't last. It doesn't last. Or you got to keep feeding something. You have to keep feeding it and feeding it and feeding it. And then you become the slave of the thing. And is that love? No, it's not. So I will discourage that. But if you want to do it, people do it and it can be done.
Okay, so it can be done.
People do it all the time and they fail.
And they fail.
Okay.
So we have two callers waiting, but
Okay, no problem. I appreciate it, Dennis. I appreciate it, Queen Mother. Thank you again.
All right, Mashawn, go ahead.
Hey, brothers and sisters, and yes, it can be done. It was done to me, okay? And it doesn't last. I'm telling you, wait till you hear my story. It does work and it can work, but like you said, it doesn't last. And the outcome is usually not good. But I wanted to say,
Ms. Banks, if you could please greet Queen Mother, please.
Hello, Queen Mother.
Hello. Hello, Sister
Nice
Mashawn.
to meet you, Queen Mother. And I'm a spiritualist too. And I've been taught by other Queen Mothers for many, many years. And it does take years and years and years. I just wanted to say that I really feel that we really need to come together to address the discord among our people, the diaspora, globally, because there is an issue and there are some problems. And I don't loyalty is another issue. Because if you're talking about fighting the oppressor, colonialism that goes back for hundreds of years, and I feel like we're just going around in circles and we're going back and forth. And we're talking, and some people are trying, and it's just not elevating. We're not where we're supposed to be. And so the question does become a question to the creator, because a lot of us are at that point. Like, where do we go? How do we start? We've been doing X, Y, and Z for so many years. And it seems like the sincere, genuine ones are always murdered. So the question is, being serious, what do we have to do? And what is our real destination and our real goal here? For us to prosper as one people or different peoples? That is really the question.
Right. Those are important philosophical questions and political questions too. But some piece of that is deeply personal. You know, we have divination systems in our traditions, and whether you are a priest or a novice, invariably everyone, at least on the African continent in Benin, that I know, whether they're Christian or Muslim, doesn't matter what they are. When it comes to dealing with the ancestors and sort of understanding one's own fate, one's destiny, consultations are done. Um, we do them in the Caribbean too. We do them in Latin America, and we do them here in the States, especially you know, if you know root workers, people who do in the Voodoo community. There are readers that are there, and so to learn your own individual fate, your own destiny, you need to either be trained to do the readings yourself. But let's face it, most of us are not objective when it comes to reading ourselves. But find somebody that you trust who can do a reading for you. That resolves the individual piece. The individual piece can also be looked at from the point of view of community. And so, what is your role in the community? Um, and when you learn what that is, then you can figure out, and it's something each of us has to do. Um, how do we contribute? How do we take whatever God given gift that we have? Because we all have one. We all have one. Um, how do we use that for the upliftment of our people? And then get together with other like-minded individuals who seek the same thing. Now, I'm not going to make an argument because first I've studied as a student of history. I've watched this process unfold for too long to say that we must all go back to the African continent. But we don't, you know, because Africa is with us wherever we are. You know, we're like those bees. We Africanize things. Um, we take what is ours and we reconfigure it. We might redesign it. We might relabel it, call it something else. Uh, but you leave this place, what? You eat grits here, we eat maï moulin in Haiti, and we eat, you know, we eat pat or fufu in West Africa. But it's the same food, basically. It's the same principle. It's cooked a little different, you know. I like mine with some cashews. You might like yours with some sardines or some I don't know, something else. Um, but it's the same idea. And I think when we begin to recognize that we take what we identify as African, when we take our core with us wherever we are, we can recreate Africa there, and we have done that. That's why we have the IETs of the world. That's why we have the Brazils. That's why we have the Cubas. That's why we have Louisianas. Africa is manifest in those spaces as well. Now, for those of us who wish to go back to the continent, that's another exercise, and that is everything from it's almost, it has to be a vocation. You know, you have to have that calling because it is too hard to do this. It is too hard to sort of de-isolate yourself from wherever you are right now, and cross that ocean and start your life there again. It's a vocation. It's a vocation. But for those of us who are there, if you can support us and work with us and collaborate with us, then we are in a better position to help maintain that bridge, continue the process of exchange, to sustain the dialogue, to see how we can make it easier, if not for you, then your children or your children's children to come back to the continent. If that is so, if it's what you desire. Alternatively, then why can't Africans also be able to come with ease to Mexico, to Brazil, to Haiti? There are no plane. airplanes. They're, connecting those of us in the diaspora directly to the African continent. We invariably have to go by way of Europe or some other route. So it works both ways, and what you can do, what I can do, we're doing different things, but we may be doing the same thing at the end of the day. And there is no wrong or no right to it. The only thing that I'd say that is important is this notion of what we call Minoka or Pan-Africanism, that there is this love, this recognition, this ability to honor and respect us as African descendants, no matter what we look like and no matter what we are, and to be able to fully embrace and the manifestations of our cultures, because they are going to be a little bit different everywhere. But at the end of the day, it's still African.
Prince, I just wanted to say also with the youth, Queen Mother, the youth appears to be angry everywhere. And I've seen and I've heard the videos and I've heard the cry. I'm talking about throughout Africa, throughout America. I mean, the Caribbean islands, the youth are angry to this, it's like their self-destruction, but they're also angry at the elders. And even here in America, when I listen to the youth, they're saying the complaint is, a lot of it is our fault of the decisions that we have made as elders and adults, that sort of, which is like a sword against them. And so they're acting out now, because you see more of the youth attacking the adults and attacking seniors and attacking their mothers and their own fathers. So how do you rectify that? And when I say this, I'm talking globally, because this is like all over the place. They're just acting out. And it's a real cry, because something has to be done for the generations behind us. And I'm asking, what is it that we didn't do? Because some of them are telling us, well, you sold out and we're not aggressive and we're not military enough to handle our responsibilities. Thank you.
Were you directing this question to Dinus or to me, or to both of us?
LaShawn, unmute yourself.
Both of you.
Well, I'm not an elder yet, so I would say it's lack of engagement. I think from the feedback that I get is more lack of engagement, and I think another issue as well is a lot of the, I guess, elders are being very resistant to change. I think being resistant to change and lack of engagement is I would say is really the issues, I would think. What about you, Queen Mother?
Well, I think there's a couple of questions that you're asking, and they're all getting mixed up. The issue of disrespect, that's unacceptable. And if people are lashing out against their parents globally, maybe that's because they didn't have any home training. And so within mal élevé, as we would say, where I come from. And so if your parents didn't train you to be respectful, to listen and not interrupt, to say thank you and please and all that kind of stuff, you're ill-mannered, that's one thing. That is an issue between yourself and your parent, and perhaps the parent and whoever raised them. But in terms of sort of global backlash, or you're talking about things politically, I feel like asking you, well, what the hell makes you think I'm not angry? What makes you think that people before me weren't angry? And there's anger and there's anger. There is anger that is just unmitigated emotion that is just run amok and isn't used in a constructive way. And then there is anger that gets driven, that energy gets driven, it gets focused, and it goes someplace. And it goes someplace very, very, very specific. It's like taking the laser. You can tear people and destroy everything with laser light, but you can also create some of the most beautiful designs, images, carve out spaces with that energy. And so the anger is something like that as well. It is both my love and my anger that drove me back to Benin. That is causing me to, in spite of some really insulting things that have happened to me, even very recently, that I persevered and became enthroned as the Queen Mother and a member of the High Council of Kings, because there is a vision. There's something I want to do for you, for our children, our children's children, that is motivating and driving me. It is the same thing that led our elders to stand up and fight during the civil rights movement and the Black Power movement. It is the same thing that led abolitionists and other kind of labor movements to take place. This goes back generations and generations. So, the anger of youth, I think it's just par for the course. I think it's what happens when we become angry. When we're and it's perhaps not even anger. It's we feel helpless and we don't know where to direct our energies. So if there's a failure on the part of the generation before, it is about not directing those energies into a space, into a place where it can be used constructively. There are fights that are multi-generational. The business of police brutality and mass incarceration, this is not new. This is not new. It had a different name. It's been happening for generations. And unfortunately, it's going to continue for a little bit longer. I would hope that by the time our children have children, that problem will no longer be an issue among us. But we cannot be in societies where also we push capitalism, we push consumerism, where you have to what you must have. Otherwise, if you don't have these things, your humanity isn't recognized. You're not a meaningful person. If we are in societies that create scarcity, or don't find a problem to scarcity, yes, people get upset, but they need solutions. So our task as elders is again, create that safe space where it's okay to come talk to me. I see you. I recognize you. Let's have this conversation. Let me hear what's on your mind. But let me tell my story as well, so you understand where I came from, because where I came from connects to where you are, and ultimately where you as a youth are is going to connect to the generation afterwards. So we're all part of a chain, and hopefully each of us is responding to some specific thing. I remember being at the State of the Black World Conference that was organized some years ago in Newark by Dr. Ron Daniels. And you've heard of the idea of tweens, right? You're in between, I guess, 12 and 13. You're tween. You're not quite a teen yet. We came up with something that was similar for those of us who are elders, but we're in our 50s, early 60s, the generation behind us, they're not elders yet, right? The generation that precedes us are the elders. And those elders charged us with, well, we've got to build institutions, schools, cultural centers, banks, whatever. We did the work of institution building. So we listened to them. And then we build our institutions, and then what's happening to us? There's not enough wealth, there's not enough interest, there's not enough to sustain us, there's not enough for us to keep building or utilizing these institutions. In the meantime, whether it's integration, the evolution of integration of where it's gone, but other changes in our society make the plan that we had one that is no longer feasible. It doesn't work anymore. We've got to find another response. We get frustrated because we're caught in between a rock and a hard place. But that is not going to change anything. We have to find solutions. Cooler minds, temperaments have to prevail. We have to acknowledge, well, y'all told us to do X, Y, and Z. Didn't seem to work. Now, what do you think we can do? We can talk to those in front of us. We can talk to those behind us. Maybe the generation behind us also has a solution. Let's think about the issue of reparations for a minute. We have to have reparations. Everybody wants the check, right? And when we think of the check, we think of cash, right? Now, and so the cash generation, that's what my generation, my elders dealt with. That was currency. Now we have cryptocurrency. And let's just say there's no issue with these fungibles these monetary units that exist in cyberspace. Everything is cool. It's real. But here we are stuck with this need for cash that doesn't mean anything because the gold standard has been no longer exists. We just have paper. What does a paper mean? In some ways, it begins to mean nothing. Then we have this stuff that exists. That's also currency in cyberspace. Is the cyberspace going to overwhelm what we have in terms of paper, in terms of money? It may. I don't know. The same way that at some point the paper money became more important than the actual physical gold and silver that we carried. And so there's always going to be this push, this pull, this frustration that takes place as we evolve. But we need to understand that we are evolving and we're moving towards the greater good of our communities. We got to keep that in mind no matter what. And so the youth have to come humbly. There is this issue of humiliation to address their elders, but a true elder also knows to be humble as well, and to create that space of dialogue, to create a space of refuge for people, so that the conversation can take place, and together we'll find solutions. Nobody hears anything when anyone is angry. Nobody responds to anger. It's just wah, 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 wah. And we shut it out. We don't want anything to do with it. So other spaces of communication, those doors have to be created, and we need to give ourselves permission to do that. So that's my response to this. But we also need to look at the larger global situation that we're in. We can't continue to live in a capitalist, a post-capitalist society. We can't continue to live in a society that is consumer-oriented, because not everybody has, and most people do not have the means to go out and acquire. Our definition of one's self-worth cannot be defined by what you have in terms of money, in terms of material possessions. And I think that's what's at the heart of things, because young people can't live up to those standards anymore. They're impossible standards to live up to.
Hey, Mashawn, we appreciate you coming
Yeah.
on. Let me bring on one last caller, then we're going to close out. Okay. Let's see here. All right, Mr. Untouchable, go ahead and close us out.
Can you hear me?
Hear you just fine.
Okay. First, let me say respect to you, Queen Mother, and respect to you, Dynasty Mayor. Respect to you both. I have a question, and I know we was the Queen Mother was talking about business just now, but I have a kind of business question. In respects to Benin, why doesn't Benin try to promote itself as a voodoo mecca? You know, just like in Rome. In Rome, they have Catholicism promoted and things like that, where people from all around the world come to Rome to give whatever. So I'm thinking that since Benin is supposed to be the mecca of where voodoo is supposed to be founded, why don't they promote that culture as central to that experience through the world, as this is us, this is our culture, this is who we are? Because I believe the wealth is really essentially in the culture.
That's a good question. I agree with you. But in fact, since was it WIDA 1992, there's been a very conscious effort to promote voodoo. Every January 10th for almost 30 years is the International Voodoo Festival that takes place in Benin. And so people do run there and go there and participate in those activities. And it's gone from a 2-day event to effectively one that can last the entire month. There's a tremendous amount of work that is being done right now in places like WIDA, but all over Benin, that the President Patrice Talon has initiated, where the museums, the covenants, the historic sites are all being renovated. There's infrastructure that has been built so you can get more easily to some of these places. There will be hotels, there are restaurants, there's a number of things that are being done to attract the diaspora as a whole and get to get us collectively to visit, if not necessarily return to Benin. So that is being done. But you also have to understand, if this work wasn't being done before, why wasn't it being done? Have you always been so open-minded about voodoo?
I'm from the Caribbean, so.
Well, no. Sometimes the people I find who are most prejudicial are from the Caribbean. But you are from the Caribbean, and so therefore you know.
Yeah.
You know that Obia, which is a manifestation of voodoo,
Yes.
has been a crime on the books.
That's right. That's
We
right.
still, up until maybe a year ago.
That's right. That's right. That's right. But I'm wondering, why doesn't Haiti promote it as like like a maybe a satellite mecca for voodoo, because really the tradition itself is so rich. So I'm thinking that would be a good way. I know you don't really necessarily like capitalism, but it would be a good way to solicit a good amount of resources from spirituality, you know?
Right. And again, every society has to be able to generate income. And it isn't capitalism per se, but it's the ugliness, the exploitation that comes along with it that
Sure.
I object to. Same question. Why would voodoo in Haiti be put front and center? We used voodoo to liberate ourselves. We used it to liberate ourselves. And we declared our liberation in 1804. We have been crushed and inundated and penalized because of the very important role that voodoo played in the liberation of Africans on that island, but not just on the island, because when Haiti liberated itself, our mission was to help liberate people of African descent wherever we were. And as a result, you'll see a huge uptick in slave revolts in the Caribbean, in the United States, in South America, that are a direct result of the Haitian Revolution. And the Haitian Revolution began officially with the ceremony of Bwakaima, which was a voodoo ceremony. So it's been a part of our culture. We don't have to advertise it, but we've
Okay.
also been crushed and penalized, for it. Think back, the earthquake that took place, that horrible earthquake that killed about 300,000 people in Haiti. What did one of the most prominent preachers in this country, in the US, say? Pat Robertson. Oh, Haiti made a pact with the devil. That's why we were punished. So there's still that kind of mentality that prevails.
Queen
And
Mother.
with that kind of thinking, American Horror Story, this is just a bunch of things. The Princess and the Frog. There is still these negative ideas that about voodoo, about hoodoo, about Ifa that are still being generated out there. There's so much time and energy being spent fighting back, these things, that there almost isn't a time. There aren't enough people and resources to help uplift to help uplift and elevate the tradition as a tool for economic development and what I call spiritual tourism. But that is changing. And you
Queen
see,
Mother, I have one last question, if I may ask. You were speaking about the Haitian Revolution, and I have a historical question. Why is it that when the Haitians gained their independence and freedom, why didn't they seek to liberate the surrounding islands in the Caribbean?
you weren't listening to me. I just told you
Okay,
that we did.
remind me.
I just, you need to read a few history books, my brother.
Okay.
We did. The mission of the Haitian Revolution was to reinstantiate the humanity of Africans, to liberate us and to have us seen as the human beings that we are, and also to humanize those barbarians, because there is no other way to describe those who enslaved us and were effectively committing genocide against us. Our vision wasn't limited to our island. One of the reasons there is a problem with Haiti and the Dominican Republic is precisely because of this mandate that we had to keep ourselves as African people and African people wherever we were, free from the torments of slavery. Haiti sent coffee and other resources to Simon Bolivar, and that was sold so they could buy arms to liberate themselves there. But the condition that one of our revolutionary leaders, Pétion, gave Bolivar was, we'll give you these resources, but you must liberate every African. Bolivar said yes, but did he do it? No, he did not. So the vision to liberate, this is also why we established an empire. When we liberated ourselves, our first government was not a republic, it was an empire. It was an empire that was intended to protect the rights of Black people everywhere. The 1805 Constitution of Jean-Jacques Dessalines made it clear, if you were a person of African descent, if you were a nègre, noir, if you were Black, and you could make your way to Haiti, you were a free man, woman, or child. But on top of that, we use our military prowess to train, to use our diplomatic skills as a force of good. Our resources, whether it was gold, coffee, sugar, cotton, whatever it is that we had, we use those things to help fuel the the revolts and the wars that were taking place. I said in my last response that following the revolution, that there was an explosion of revolts throughout this hemisphere. That is because of the Haitian Revolution. Nat Turner got his instructions from where? If you asked, do that history, he'll say he got his instructions from Dessalines.
Yeah, but well, like I say, I appreciate it, but I appreciate it, Queen Mother. I appreciate you answering my question. But what I really meant to say is not necessarily in South America or North America itself, but I'm in the Bahamas, so I'm directly above you, and places like Jamaica and Cuba. I'm thinking that if the Haitian Revolution,
No. I have to interrupt you. You need to know your own history. Whether it's Kofi, Tula, Nani, well, Nani came before the Haitian Revolution, but there were a plethora of revolts throughout the Caribbean. Throughout the Caribbean.
I understand, but
So
what I'm saying is,
that was done. That was done. And at the same time, a newly established republic only has but so many resources to send overseas. We're not
I
imperialist forces. You
I
can't
see.
become the thing that you're fighting against.
I see. Okay.
You can't become the thing that
Thank
you're
you.
fighting against.
Okay. Thank you, Queen Mother. I appreciate it.
Okay. All right, thank you. Yeah, I think his question was why didn't Haiti send boats and guns and reinforcements and militaries to the islands? I think that's what he was referring to.
You know, uh, and my answer is still the same. Um, You can't become the thing that you're fighting against. You can't become an imperializing force yourself. We're fighting with our next door neighbor, the Caribbean, in the Dominican Republic, who, in their quest to, I hate to put it this way, sort of remain white or want to be recognized as white, fighting with them. Haiti was still fighting long after her liberation, threats from the French, the Spanish, and the British Army. So there's only so much we can do instead of sending people abroad. But in fact, I was just thinking about the Battle of Savannah here in the Americas, in Georgia, but that was just before the Haitian Revolution. There's only so many resources that we have, and what we don't have in personnel, what the island didn't have in personnel, we sent in terms of resources to other countries that were having diplomatic relations with us.
Mm-hmm. Queen Mother, anything else you'd like to share in closing? And once again, thank you for coming on, and we got to have you on again. People want you on again, so we got to. You can't be a stranger. We got to have
I
you
will
on.
not be a stranger. I thank you for.
It is my fault. It is my fault too. It's my fault too. I got to invite you to come back on more.
I'll be happy to do so. And I'm grateful for everyone who is on the show, who asked the questions that they did. And while, I didn't intend it to be a history lesson on IET or necessarily on Voodoo, but, these things come up. It's important. And it's part of the process of creating spaces of dialogue, among our people. There's a lot of work to do. I do encourage you to come visit Benin. I do encourage you to write me. I don't know if my email appears anywhere, but
I'll put it in the chat room. I'll put it in the chat room right now.
The sister who asked about a formal letter of invitation, write me. So I can write you back with your name and your address, and I can make it an official thing, and I can show members of government, look, a request has come in, or there are several. There's 1,000 requests that have come in, and so we need to do something formal in terms of a response. Support the vision that I have for the diaspora. Support the vision that Amir has, that there are others of us who, many of us, but we're not that big of a number, but there's enough who are doing work for the right of return, even if your plan isn't to return to the African continent. But whatever support you can give organizations or sovereigns like myself who are doing this kind of work will be appreciated. We can't realize these goals without you. We can't do the work that we're doing without the necessary resources, including your encouragement. We need that above all, because sometimes you feel like, why am I doing this? I mean, we know why, but when you feel like there's no one is recognizing the work, nobody appreciates the work, it makes it that much harder to fulfill. So stay with us. If you believe in us, let us know. And I will leave you on that note and with my benedictions for, well, the week is almost over, but for the coming weeks and days ahead.
Thank you, Queen Mother. Thank you so much for joining. Everyone, like, share, subscribe. Queen Mother's email address is on the screen. It's also in the chat room. So please do not hesitate. Reach out. Until next time, family. Dynasty Mirror Search for Huru. Me and Kala will be on later on tonight, around 7:38. So I'll keep you guys posted. Peace.
Thank you.
Thank you. You're welcome.
And that's it, Numi.